So maybe just the last thing, just having the screens for the, sorry. So I thought maybe we could start with the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Anybody not familiar with the refuge bodhicitta prayer? You're welcome to just listen if you like. It's a aspiration to awaken our Buddha potential, our Buddha nature, with the aspiration that our awakening can then be of service to all sentient beings. So we just express that, and we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and spiritual community to as a support and guide to help kind of have that awaken that process. And then the second prayer is the four immeasurables. It's just a compassionate wish for the well-being of all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from desire for friends and hatred for enemies. Maybe we can just take a moment in quiet meditation just to help us settle. If you like, you can begin to pay attention just to the sensation and presence you feel of sitting in your seat. And then just turning your attention to the feeling of the breath as it moves in and out. Letting ourselves the permission to not have to think about the past, anticipate the rest of the day, just enjoying sitting and breathing. Okay, great. I'm going to meditate towards the end of the session today, so this will be just a little short. Sorry to take you out of the meditation so quickly. And just those on Zoom, I'm probably going to try to keep a lot of my gaze into the room just to make sure I'm projecting my voice. So I might not be looking at the screen as much. So I don't, the little sound that I project doesn't get absorbed by the computer screen. So this little mini program is 3 sessions. We're in session 2 today. And we're exploring some elements of the bodhisattva path, Mahayana kind of aspiration and bodhisattva practice. And so we're looking at certain kind of qualities that we're working with and trying to develop, and also how they manifest in certain deities and kind of meditational Buddhas that we can practice, and how those kind of can relate and support our journey. And last week we focused on kind of concept of compassionate presence. So kind of the quality of kind of developing a capacity to be able to be compassionately present with suffering. And, we're kind of talking about like not just being aware if when our compassion might turn into kind of where we might start to shut down and wanting just to fix it. So it's just, something kind of gets activated in us, or we get in kind of fixing mode with ourselves. Something in us that arises that is painful, and that moment of pain kind of sends us into kind of a survival instinct to try to change it or whatnot. Or in the same, if we see that in others, where we see some sort of pain or challenge for somebody, already kind of jumping into like a fixing kind of mode, whereas in the Buddhist tradition, our compassionate service comes from a place of depth, kind of the depth of our awareness and kind of a deeper capacity to be able to witness, and then move from a place of compassion, which is peaceful. Like compassion has a kind of strength and peace. It's not coming from a place of fear or anxiety or overwhelm. And so it's not an easy thing to do, and it's something that we can cultivate in our meditation practice and just our general life understanding. We talked a bit about how can we actually do that? How can we bear witness to suffering without being disturbed by it, and actually be able to embody strength and be able to meet the needs of that situation. And one of the kind of insights or wisdoms that we develop is that the emotional pain isn't one. It's just pain. There's self. I'm not my anger. I'm not my depression, and I'm not my anxiety, and so forth. Or that person is not. That's not who they fully are. There's more to them. There's more to the story. There's more space around it. And so we're starting to cultivate that wisdom of like it's like a cloud in the sky, or the emotion's here, but there's also all this kind of space to around the emotion, because the emotion's temporary. It doesn't last all the time. Even if we have a kind of consistent mood, maybe that we're working with, maybe like depression for many years or something, we still have those gaps of where sunlight kind of breaks through. It's not a permanent thing. It's shifting. It's changing moment to moment. And there's usually some sort of underlying maybe story or narrative behind the pain. And oftentimes it's just we're not having the ability to be compassionately present with their own experience, we just maybe needed to listen to it. Like, what do I actually feel like? Oh, I feel like this. If I'm not helping people, then I'm not a good person or something like that. So then I'm stressed out, or there can be some sort of thing that is causing the constant stirring up. There's some sort of cause and effect situation going on. So all that we kind of can learn through kind of Buddhist psychology, Western psychology as well, and the practices, the meditation experience of being with ourselves. So when we do formal sitting practice, we're learning to cultivate and be with ourselves in that way, in a compassionate, kind of just presence way. And we also see that the emotions, sometimes if we're actually able just to be with them without trying to fix them, without shutting down, they actually just kind of move through. And in the tradition, there's a saying that depending on the quality of the meditator's capacity, the emotions will self-liberate. They actually will just liberate themselves if we just get out of the way. If we can be with them, but just let them kind of do their thing. Anger kind of comes through, and if we don't kind of try to, don't feel it or whatever, it just kind of releases and it's over. It's kind of like that, karma's finished. Yeah.
So in this example that you're talking about, is that where we would just really just feel like we have sort of a cycle that we notice of discontentment or anger that happens? I mean, so what I'm hearing you say is that we listen, we show up for that, we listen to it, but we don't add to this conceptual story. Mm-hmm. And is that what you're saying? You are being an observer, but not engaging with that fear or anger or discontentment?
Yeah, it's like yes. Maybe I'll respond to that. It might actually explain the question. So, yeah, I think so. So the question, actually, I'll just say the question.
The question is,
yeah.
Are we observing these feelings without shutting them down, but without nurturing them?
Without nurturing.
And if we can sort of not engage in creating more stories around it or inflaming the fire. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing you say is that then it has the ability to move through.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So actually it's not really exactly. Yeah. So the point Don's making, there's that kind of balance of like we're being with the suffering, but we're also not engaging it too much in the conceptual way, too much feeding the story, where we're just kind of it becomes almost like a distraction, or it's like feeding the flames, or just kind of like ruminating. So it's like listening, but it's almost like if you're sitting with somebody and it's like they haven't spoken in like they seem like they haven't talked to anybody in like weeks, and they just start unloading. Like you're like, oh, okay, they really need to get off, but meanwhile we're kind of staying below the story. Like we're listening, but we're like staying below the story. We're staying kind of connected. So we're kind of staying connected with the emotion, but not necessarily feeding the storyline. And then that allows, I think, the contact and the space of not engaging with it in that way allows it to move through. We can kind of see how it will shift. So we have to be present, but we're not present in a way of trying to figure it out. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Do you think that trying to figure it out or engaging is functioning of ego, or trying to keep it going? Like a separate item?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I feel like it's like I'm trying to solve. It's the question was, do we think the the figuring out, is that a function of ego? And for me, it's like kind of like puzzle, like I'm like trying to solve a puzzle, and it's like trying to solve the thing with the thing. It's like dog chasing its tail for me. And there is, for me, there is like a ego kind of control fixing, because I have to do it, like maybe I have a tendency, like my ego feels like I'm actually the one that's going to make the enlightenment happen or something like that, or I have to solve it, I have to fix it or something like that, where actually it's just like, okay, that's there. And that's kind of like real, in a way, real listening, where we're not, it's like open-ended. Like, okay, oh, interesting, what's there? That's there. Like, there's like an openness and kind of almost like a curiosity. Not an intellectual curiosity, but just kind of a curiosity of being. Like, oh, wow, I'm angry right now. Okay, oh, interesting. What's that? And then it kind of has its own kind of life to move through. Yeah. Because it's like if it doesn't move through, then it just gets trapped, and like that, and we missed that moment. We missed our moment to actually allow that process to finish. But we didn't. So we kind of changed it or judged it or suppressed it or whatever, and it got kind of trapped for another day or next hour or whatever. That makes sense. Yeah. And how's Chen? So we were talking about the Buddha Chenrezig, which is the deity to the left of the Buddha. And how Chenrezig practice can kind of help facilitate that, awaken that, our capacity of compassionate presence. I'm going to say I have two things kind of going. Yes, okay. So one thing I'll say with the deity practice, deity yoga, where we imagine an enlightened form, so the Buddha of compassion is kind of an enlightened form, and we receive kind of blessings and kind of healing nectars and energy, or like we're taking in the energy of that Buddha. It's filling our bodies, permeating ourselves within this context of wanting to develop our compassion, develop our wisdom, develop our capacity, so forth. So it's kind of like it's helping purify our kind of subtle nervous system of all the kind of disturbance of our emotional challenges and so forth. And it's kind of imbibing us, or and kind of filling us with this energy. And this is kind of what's called traditionally is deity yoga, taking the results, bringing the result into the present. So the deities are this kind of manifestation of our future awakening. They're kind of manifestations of like a completely fulfilled resultant state of like all the practice that we're doing to develop ourselves. This kind of deity kind of embodies or represents that fully developed kind of state. It's like where I feel like I have things I need to develop, things I need to work on. I'm like a work in progress. I feel incomplete. Like I'm not full of universal love. I have my preferences, my challenges, my fears, and so forth. And I'm working with that, trying to develop that. And here's this kind of symbol of complete wholeness and fulfillment. And so the practice is actually relating to the results, if that makes sense. This kind of, and somehow we're able to, it impacts us. It actually kind of awakens those qualities in us. because the fact that we can do this deity yoga and have a sense of what it would mean to be in the presence of the Buddha of compassion or the Buddha of wisdom is because we actually have those qualities in us. It's just that expression is its fully developed form. Yeah. So it's nice. It's like a really nice support, and because enlightenment, the way we're thinking about enlightenment and the Lamrim and the gradual stages of this kind of gradual path, and this kind of, this holiness talks about this idea of universal responsibility, where we're trying to develop ourselves to be of service to all beings in the universe, and it just seems so far out, like so long time from now. Like in the Buddhist tradition, we talk about lifetimes is like kind of inconceivable, like amount of time to develop it. Here we actually, it's like it's right now. It's actually in the present. We're getting kind of to feel that present embodied experience of bodhicitta or of bodhisattva. So it's a nice refuge, and that we can just get some support, actually. And Lama Yeshe, and he has a book called Becoming the Compassion Buddha, and it's on the practice of Chenrezig. It's a kind of detailed commentary on all the details of practice, of how to do the practice and all the elements. And he was saying, if you're doing a Chenrezig retreat where all day you're doing the mantra, you're reciting the mantra, you're visualizing yourself as Chenrezig, it's like Chenrezig's energy is permeating through you all day long. You're doing all these prayers and compassion, thinking and so forth. You'll be having breakfast that morning and just notice that, oh, I am Chenrezig. And not in the sense of like inflated, like my ego is, I'm the Buddha of compassion or anything like that. Hopefully not. But just the kind of energetic presence, the kind of vibration, the kind of wisdom vibration of this kind of universal love that we're being kind of taught and communicated to in this kind of symbolic form. And one thing that Lou mentioned yesterday, because we were talking about kind of similar topic, is like the practice of deity yoga is helping us get below our conceptual mind. It's helping us get below our kind of out of our heads, and it's kind of healing and transforming us at an energetic level, at a kind of more of a deeper kind of level of mind. So a lot of times it doesn't make sense. Like people have been doing this practice doesn't really make sense. Some of it doesn't literally, like I can't figure out why we do this or visualize that or whatever. And Lama Yeshe was saying that it actually, Tantra in some ways is not supposed to make sense. Actually, it's trying, some elements of the practice is trying to not make sense to help us stop trying to make sense. It's trying to overthrow that kind of mind so that we can come into a deeper level of mind that's just not, it's stuck in our heads. Yeah, and just the quality of the practice, you do it and the kind of transformation starts to happen. Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking to mention, I don't know if it's too much, but the colors of the deity. Oh, maybe I'll wait on that. How's this land? Any questions or comments? How's this? For folks. Well, yeah, so that's Chenrezig and compassion. So that was last week. It's a long summary. This week we're going to talk about another kind of key component. The path is wisdom. And because this kind of idea of this universal responsibility, this kind of just enormous idea of being able to be of service to all beings or benefiting beings, or like just extraordinary capacity within like my ordinary like ego kind of small sense of self personality. Like there's no, it's not possible. Like I literally can't, it's not possible. So what we're kind of called to kind of tap into is the idea of what's called emptiness, or this kind of big mind. Like, so, so the bodhisattva is dedicated to the world, being of service in the world in a kind of manifested way, like in it. They say like bodhisattvas aren't going like renounce heaven to continually to be involved in the muck and slime of working with samsara, or being in relationship in the world. So they're still engaged and dedicated to be in a relationship in the world, manifesting the world. But the capacity is coming from this sense of source of the nature of emptiness. And actually, I think there's a nice quote from this text that I will read. So a bodhisattva could be said to live between worlds, or between two dimensions of reality. One dimension is the ultimate nature of reality, the primordial purity of spacious awareness, clarity and emptiness, free of dualistic appearances. The other is the dimension of relative truth in the world of forms and appearances, within which we become entangled in our ordinary life. Living with full awareness of these two dimensions enables a profound capacity to remain in the world, with all of its struggles and challenges, while at the same time not being caught in holding them to be solid, enduring, and truly existent. Put simply, this means the bodhisattva lives on the threshold between form and emptiness. So we're trying to develop our understanding and our of this kind of bigger nature of mind, that the nature of mind itself is empty, open, free, like the sky. And that allows us to have this kind of great capacity to be able to be with whatever is going on with anybody, and have this kind of even, open, peaceful, clear, wise ability to respond. And we see that in our teachers, where there's just like an evenness, like with Yangtze Rinpoche. I was around Yangtze Rinpoche for years, a lot at my Tripa College in Portland, and there's just always, he was still have emotions, he'd laugh, cry, get stern, be playful, but there's just kind of this evenness that he always kind of possessed, that he could just respond, and that capacity is his cultivation of this insight in that our projections are insubstantial. Like our projections of our life, the emotions that we experience are just manifestations of mind. Mind itself is intangible, ungraspable. It has this kind of free, open nature, pure, all these descriptions. And and that's a hard thing to cultivate. And so again, we have these kind of two tracks where we, with the gradual Lam Rim path, the gradual path, we study the kind of intellectual, conceptual, philosophical understandings of trying to see what they're pointing to. How is it possible that my awareness in its fundamental nature is pure and clear, empty, open, and that's the nature of everything in reality. How is that possible? So we learn those. We study the text to kind of get a philosophical, kind of intellectual understanding, and we meditate hard, think hard, keep reading the text, keep contemplating, keep trying to apply it to our life, see how it kind of, how is that true, and we gradually develop that, and those two tracks where we develop kind of compassionate skills and skills and wisdom and insight. And those are kind of the two tracks of the path that we're trying to develop. And then in the same way that Chenrezig kind of models or kind of opens us to this kind of compassionate presence, Manjushri, the Buddha with the sword on the left or right, turned around, wherever it is. He's seen as the Buddha of wisdom, of this wisdom of emptiness, wisdom of openness. To say about Manjushri. Yeah, so Manjushri is, I don't know if we have a painting. Manjushri is orange in color, but in Tibetan actually it's red-yellow, which is has an interesting kind of meaning. But yeah, he's an orange deity with a sword, and he holds this lotus flower that blooms, and the lotus flower has this text, the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom. It's the discourse, the kind of maybe the primary discourse of the Buddha's teachings on emptiness. And one thing we notice when we meditate on emptiness is the text will say we have to have this kind of clear, steady, quiet, peaceful mind, and then we can start to analyze and search for the self, search for do this analytical meditation, and we can feel kind of foggy or kind of dull or kind of not, or it just doesn't make sense. It's not this kind of sharp, penetrating insight. So the insight, the understanding that we have to actually liberate us has to be clear, powerful, penetrating in quality. And Manjushri practice can help kind of boost, bring about the kind of clear. In the practice, you kind of request, may I have clear wisdom, may I have quick wisdom, may I have profound wisdom, may I have vast wisdom. These kind of different vast wisdoms, like the kind of extensive understanding of all different types of teachings. The profound being the very depth of understanding of all these teachings. Quick wisdom being like very quick, sharp kind of mind. And the sword has that kind of connotation where it's like it's cutting through our fixation. It's kind of cutting through our fogginess, cutting through our confusion. And his orange color is important. So I'll just say in the tantric tradition, there's what they call four karmas, or 4 ways of being of service to beings, 4 ways of benefiting beings. One way is pacifying. So if people are suffering and going through it, we help kind of pacify them. Like we have relax, calming presence. We just kind of help them just calm down, and that's that compassionate presence that Chenrezig has. It's just a pacification. Being there with you, like Didn't even have to say anything. Just you being there with me just helped me kind of settle my nervous system, pacifying. And the color associated with the energy of pacification is white. So Chenrezig is white, and when we're having the white nectar flow through us, there's a kind of a pacification and developing that kind of wisdom of accommodating, pacifying space. And with Manjushri is red, kind of a reddish yellow. And one of the other ways we can help people when they're going through it, or help ourselves, is it's called enriching or increasing. So when somebody feels kind of disempowered, down on themselves, they need to be enriched. You need to help them tap into their inner kind of sense of resourcefulness and basic goodness, and like, okay, I'm not terrible. I do have certain qualities, whatever. We kind of help enrich their being, and that kind of helps free whatever the pattern that they're going through at present. And then another one is usually called magnetizing, or I like to think of it like drawing close. Like before we can actually help somebody, we need to kind of draw them in, like make friendship, kind of bring them in close, make contact with them, to then we can actually be in communication and help them in some way. So there's kind of a way of like bringing them in, or magnetizing, kind of drawing in. And that color is red. So the enriching is yellow, and the magnetizing associated with energy red. And so Manjushri actually has these two kind of together, red, yellow. And so the orange, or I'll just say orange just for ease. Like when we're imagining orange nectar, this orange radiant, orange, red, yellow being. And the orange nectar of Manjushri, this wisdom energy of Manjushri, just permeating this vibrant orange energy. It's helping kind of enrich our qualities, are kind of activating our inner kind of richness or resource. And so we have that richness that helps kind of start to develop our understanding. And so they'll say, like, if we're trying to read a text and we're just like, it's just like banging a head against the wall. Maybe I've read it before and it made sense, but like today it's just not working. Or, I feel kind of bereft in my wisdom or whatever. We can do this kind of resourcing practice, Manjushri, and it can kind of start to bring that inner resource where then like we can kind of get it somehow. And it's interesting, one practice, a daily practice of Shakyamuni Buddha that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has for beginners doing, there's just kind of daily practice for beginners. And Shakyamuni Buddha is golden in color. So it's a really beautiful practice where we're kind of reflecting on the path, we're kind of contemplating the stages of the path, doing prayers of compassion and so forth, verbally, and we're kind of contemplating and meditating. And then we also receive this kind of rich, warm, golden energy of the Buddha kind of flowing through us. And it kind of creates this kind of foundation and kind of power and sense of like touching into our basic goodness, our basic Buddha nature. It's very lovely. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking a lot. I know just wanted to kind of cram a little bit contents. Any questions, or is this making any sense at all? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and And so again, it's kind of like Manjushri's modeling, like of what our fully developed wisdom would feel like or be like. Yeah. So our practice can be imagining the result is present for us, like that kind of that fullness of this kind of wisdom energy is present for us. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I wanted to share that just because. So before I started doing deity practice, I was going to college, doing my bachelor's at Naropa University. In 2002 or so, I took a psychology class of psychology and art, and in Naropa they have these rooms called the Maitri rooms, and they're these small little meditation rooms that are all one color. So there's a white room, there's a red room, there's a green room, a yellow room, a blue room. And those are kind of the 5 primary colors in tantric psychology. And this was developed by the founder of Naropa. And the practice is you just go in a room and you don't actually meditate. You're not supposed to meditate. You're not following your breath. You're not contemplating anything. The only instruction is to lay there with your eyes open. So you're taking in the color. You spend a half hour. There was like a posture. Some rooms you lay on the ground like this, or some you're like laying on the ground like this. But you just lay in a room and just absorb the color through your eyes. And they have certain shapes too. They're kind of also trying to. You do that for a half hour and then you leave. And then you just kind of wander and notice how it's impacted you, or notice the change in your perception. And being in the white room or the red room, like it, or the different rooms, like we would do, like you do it a couple times a week. We'd spend a week or two in one room and then switch to the red room and switch to the yellow room. And it was amazing how like completely different, like my perception was, and my sense of being, and like the way what things I was interested in, just naturally came out. Just wasn't actually doing anything. And the point of it, Naropa, the way it's used, is actually for training psychotherapists, because they do that practice to be able to, because all of us are we all have a certain style or kind of personality style or energetic style that kind of matches one of the rooms. Like some of them we all have relationships with all 5. But for a therapist to experience the world through different, it's like, how we say, like I experience the world through, when I'm in love, have the rose-colored goggles on or whatever. You experience the world from a dramatic kind of different place. So then they're called Maitri because Maitri means loving kindness. So it's helping us kind of therapists train in a sense of being able to have empathy for how this other being who sees the world completely different than I do, and so forth. So then when I started doing deity yoga, it's like I started to see like, oh, okay, it's not a random color. Like it's actually bringing out the kind of wisdom energy of that quality. Because I want to share that, because what Manjushri would talk about Tantra path is the scientific, you'd say the scientific methods of Tantra. And because they seem like there is a mystical kind of thing. I imagine it's Buddha in the space and the symbolism and so forth. Like it's a kind of mystical, it seems like very mystical or faith-based, but it's actually impacting our minds and our nervous system in very, very, very deliberate ways to help kind of work on different things. Yeah, any thoughts, comments? Just too much. Yeah, it's such a nice another quote from my teachers about this topic. So with time, we begin to experience the deity's presence coming through us, bringing a sense of our resultant awakened nature into the present. Our bodhicitta intention is then to increasingly embody this awakened potential in the present moment to serve the welfare of others. This feels very different to the idea of a goal to become a Buddha in some uncertain distant time. Understanding this immediacy can empower us to feel more optimistic and more confident in our life. As a bodhisattva engaging in the world, we may have a long journey ahead, but we are able to connect to and align with our innate potential in the present. Yeah, and both styles complement each other. So deity practice helps our understanding of the gradual path, Lam Rem, the kind of compassion practices, refuge, and so forth. All the kind of elements of psychological elements that we're developing through the gradual path, and vice versa. The kind of the psychological stability and strength that we develop through studying the Lam Rem and practicing the Lam Rem, that also makes our deity yoga more powerful because we have a stronger understanding of what compassion means, what emptiness means, what refuge means. And so in the tradition, we kind of use them both. And one thing Lou mentioned yesterday really pointed out really nicely, there's this idea of where you say accumulating, kind of going through, doing purification practices, healing practices, merit accumulation practices, where merit, we're kind of building up, we're doing positive, intentionally doing positive actions to develop this kind of goodness, kind of force of goodness in us. And yeah, the way Lou put it yesterday, like it helps kind of moisten the ground so that these realizations can actually dawn in us. Like we need a, that's kind of funny, I looked at you and said dawn. That wasn't intentional. Because we're trying to have a full transformation of our being. We're not just trying to have a better intellectual understanding. And that kind of full heart transformation of our being needs kind of a force of goodness and the vitality that kind of brings. And when we build that up, then when we engage, maybe that like some sort of insight will kind of come because we've been doing all this kind of positive practices that kind of develop our vitality and goodness and so forth. And this can be offering service, it can be doing religious practices like reciting the text, and deity yoga is another way of doing of going through a transformation of purification and developing that kind of merit vitality. Yeah, I like that. I told this story yesterday, but I like the example of one of the Buddha's main disciples, this monk named Madhyalayana, where the Buddha was giving it. Yeah, I think it was at a teaching, but anyway, the Buddha just held up a flower, and the way the Buddha just held the flower with the kind of the presence of the Buddha, like it was like a nonverbal communication, and Madhyalayana had a direct insight into the nature of reality. Buddha didn't say anything; he just held. And Madhyalayana was able to have that kind of direct insight because of that kind of development he'd already, all the practice he had done, the kind of force and the power and the goodness and the merit that he had already accumulated. That was just like this one thing that kind of, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche talks about merit as like good luck that we create, or like the merit comes together, the opportunity of the teaching comes together, and then we have that kind of insight dawn. Yeah.
I was wondering, so in the wisdom lane Manjushri, I feel like it's like the workshop is every day, we're driving to work or talking to our spouse or something, or any time for me, like if I feel anger or doubt or jealousy or whatever the affliction is, confusion, like it feels like it's like when I notice it, then it's my work to sort of investigate it or kind of find out where it's coming from. But sometimes if the emotions come so strong, then I can't do it in the moment without imputing another delusion on top of it. Do you have suggestion for like the Western mind as far as trying to identify our delusions in the wisdom? Or the things that keep us separate, because I guess my investigation goes into like how is this emotion, like how am I kind of lying to myself that I'm separate from the situation, or to be, instead of just knowing that it's sort of karmic appearance and this is how it's manifesting. I guess what are your thoughts on sort of arguing with the delusions as they arise?
So working, kind of a summary, like working with delusions from a wisdom perspective, and question about kind of arguing with them, or I mean, there's so many different tools. So of working with emotions. So one is a bit of a suppressive approach where the emotion comes up and we just try to distance ourselves, like, I think I don't know if this quite applies, but Venerable Rabbeinu would say, shut your mouth and zip your lip. Zip your lip and keep your hands to yourself. So just kind of like in simplifying our life, so like we stay away from things that kind of trigger us or activate us, so that we can get some space from them, because when they come up, they overwhelm us. If I'm always kind of going into a situation where I'm getting activated and I'm constantly being activated and I don't ever have any time for peace, then it's really hard to actually work with emotions. So at that level, there can be just to get away from it, to distance ourselves. And the primary thing of just not letting it spill out, so it's so we don't at least create a mess externally. And then another way of we can think differently about it, like seeing it through different lens. So we can use the Lojong practices of I'm having this experience, and then I try to remember some way to connect with a heart of compassion somehow. So I'll just start to think, okay, this person, start to try to change the kind of tune somehow instead of just going directly with the emotion. So it's so we're using logic or a different way of thinking of it, just try to give different perspectives so that we can work with it. In some ways, transform it into a bridge for compassion, like we can use it to connect with others. And then there's the third way of, like we were talking about before, of just allowing the kind of self-liberating way, where we actually don't have to do it. If we can just be present to the energy of the emotion, the feeling of the emotion, and allow it to be there with almost like accepting its presence, like having a sense of acceptance, or like saying kind of curiosity that's not intellectual curiosity, but just kind of open mind. Like saying, oh, here's old anger again, and anger is like this and this. Instead of being like accepting, like trying to look at it with a fresh lens and without judgment, and then seeing where it goes. And that kind of acceptance and kind of fresh lens pacifies a lot of it's like it gives us perspective, so we're not kind of pressure cooker with the emotion. Like it's kind of diffusing. It's like it's diffusing the energy of the emotion itself, because we're not struggling with it. Because the struggle in a way is samsara. It's a cycle. The struggle continues to cycle. The struggle with what we're experiencing continues to cycle. Kodo? Oh. And that lack of struggle with awareness kind of completes the cycle, allows it to free. And that's one of the goals with tantric practice, is to work with emotions at the energetic level, and it turns into wisdom energy. So the raw energy of anger is just energy. But what happens for us is it gets conceptualized, and it's all about story, and we just place it. It's all about the external thing and all this stuff. But if we can stay in the body with it and stay with the feeling of it and drop out of the storyline, it's just raw energy. And that energy actually can, like Lam Yeshe would say, kind of digests into wisdom energy. So then it has this kind of curious way, it like the poison kind of turns into medicine in a way, if we're able to stay with it, which is not an easy thing to do. Like we have to have kind of meditative training to be able to really be with the energy in that way. So that's another way of working with it. Yeah, because sometimes like the antidoting, like there is a thing where, every practice that we do has a side effect or like a warning. Like we can over antidote, where then it's actually just becoming antidote over antidote, or it's like you said, like a delusion on top of a delusion. Like I'm getting angry that I'm angry, and then I'm getting sad that I got angry about being angry, And then it's just kind of the spiral where we actually, now we're not even relating to the primary emotion.
Like more attachment, like trying to sometimes. I guess I'm noticing a difference when if they have like an emotion arises that really for me to change it completely, I need to logically go through it and sort of dismantle it and see the wrong view of it. But in the moment of the emotion, I might have too much. Like, and then it just goes into ego of like judging that I'm having the emotion. That I haven't realized. So, knowing I have a long way to go, I guess, but the logic part seems crucial in the wisdom part, so that it doesn't, it's not as likely to rise again or rise with the intensity. So for me, I don't know, maybe after, like once it's sort of the emotion just subsided, maybe it's available for me to go back to it.
Yeah.
Dissect.
Yeah. 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 Don's comment was like, in the moment, maybe the emotion is too strong or too volatile or whatever to be able to really work with the logic. But later, when things cool down, you can spend time to work with it. And that is one practice we can do. Like in a container, we can go back, take some time alone when we're cooled off, and bring up an experience in a way that's not overwhelming, and then kind of replay it and look at the different kind of deconstruct it. Yeah. 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 Yeah, Koda.
Some of you know I live in my van and I just installed a new fuse. You said defuse the flow of energy. And before you said that, I was drawing the fuse. So here's the flow of anger and fear and whatever we got going, and the fuse. And what you do is when you want it to go all the way through, like on my alternator into my house batteries, you put that little clipper down and it lets it flow through. But if you touch that button, it flips it up and the flow stops here and it does not go through. And so I just installed a small fuse and now it doesn't work because it can't handle this load. I need to install a bigger fuse. So I just had that beautiful insight of wherever, somewhere in here, installing a very large fuse that boing stops the flow of insanity, the ongoing craziness. So thank you, defusing.
One thing I find helpful is I know my own case that once things get to the point where the emotion explodes, I find it very difficult to handle because we're too much in the middle of it. But if I'm aware of my mind, I pay attention to my mind as the day goes on and catch the small annoyances before they build up into bigger annoyances. Working with the emotions
Yeah, because I guess at a point it gets to be too late to really reel it in too much. You know, we try to damage control, but once it gets to a point, it's just going to.
Can you turn up your volume? And we didn't hear the audience comment.
Yeah, comment was sometimes if the emotion could be too strong where it just explodes and it's just too difficult to work with. So one practice that helps is actually just being able to be watchful as it go along when the emotion is more manageable throughout the day to help prevent it from kind of growing into something that can explode into something too strong. So we have 20 minutes left. Do people feel, are people feeling more clarity, more questions about emotions of daily life? We could do a meditation, a Manjushri. We could, keep unpacking things that aren't clear, or how wisdom plays in daily life. Kind of open.
Does that appeal? Do you have a Manjushri practice?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of doing a short version of that. Yeah, it's called a short practice on orange Manjushri. Yeah, the question for Donnie was, one way of doing the Manjushri mantra, the last syllable is D. So you Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi, Omara Pasanadi. And the last one you do Omara Pasanadi, and you kind of take a breath and Omara Pasanadi, D, 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 you say the D quickly, and it's one of those kind of techniques to help kind of quick, clear.
The Dalai Lama once said that he does that. He did that ever since he was a little kid. He just enjoyed it. He got great pleasure from doing it.
Nice. Yeah, I guess we could try out unless any other desires, wishes. Lewis mentioned that Solinus said he liked the D, doing the rapid D since he was a kid. Yeah, maybe we can do a short Manjushri practice, just to get maybe a little taste. So I'll just guide the visualization. That way you can just kind of focus on the meditation. If you don't know the mantra, we'll do a screen share to have just the mantra up. And I invite us to kind of reconnect with that aspiration of the compassionate aspiration of bodhicitta, wanting to awaken our full potential for the benefit of all. Just to help set an intention, recite the four measurables again. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that's free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from desire for friends and hatred for enemies. And we can just bring our awareness quietly onto the breath. And if you like, you can allow the exhale to be a relaxing breath. So as we exhale, allow ourselves to settle and relax into the body. And if you like, you can try to bring part of your awareness down to the lower part of the body to connect with a sense of ground. You have a sense that the earth is below, supporting you as you breathe. And then in the space before you, the level of the forehead, 4 or 5 feet in front of you, appears a white 8-petaled lotus in the nature of light. And on top of the lotus, a moon disk lying flat, also in the nature of light. And on top of the lotus and moon disk appears the orange letter D. If you like, you can imagine an orange sphere of light. It's the essence or energy of Manjushri, form of sound. And light rays radiate from the letter D in all directions. and drawing back the wisdom energy of all the Buddhas. In the form of tiny orange Manjushris, millions of tiny orange Manjushris. Which then absorb into the D. And the D becomes vibrant and transforms instantly into the Buddha Manjushri. Manjushri is orange in color. With one face and two arms. In his right hand he holds a sword of wisdom. At his heart between his thumb and ring finger. In his left hand he holds the stem of a lotus flower, which blooms to the left side of his head, holding. And on the lotus flower rests the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And Manjushri sits in the full lotus posture. He's adorned with precious ornaments and jewels. His hair is tied in a top knot, loose across the shoulders. And he gazes with a serene smile within the aura of radiant orange light. And if the details are difficult, the main sense is to have a felt sense of the Buddha of wisdom in the space before you, as you can imagine, as you understand. And read out the requests. Manjushri, please grant us blessings to achieve extensive great wisdom, that is able to understand and explain the meanings of extensive scriptures without resistance. We request that wisdoms of hearing, understanding, and meditation may increase. We request that the wisdoms of expounding, debating, and writing may develop. We request that general and sublime realizations may be granted. Please grant us blessings to be quickly like you. We request that the transcendental wisdom of the simultaneously born great bliss may arise. We request that the stains of truly believing illusory thought may be purified. We request that the net of doubts that are only in the mind may be cut off. Please grant us blessings to be quickly like you. We request that the transcendental wisdom of the simultaneously born great bliss may arise. We request that the stains of truly believing illusory thought may be purified. We request that the net of doubts that are only in the mind may be cut off. Please grant me blessings to be quickly like you. And we can make any personal requests of anything that we need support with helping to clear or develop in ourselves. And at Manjushri's heart is the moon disk lying flat, and on top of the moon disk is the orange syllable D, or orange sphere of light. Encircling around the D, like a garland of orange pearls, is the syllables of the mantra. Based on our request, compassionate, warm, orange, liquid light nectar begins to flow out from Manjushri's heart. This radiant orange wisdom energy begins to flow through our crown. And it flows to the body, filling every atom and cell in the body. Helping to clear and flush out confusion, depression, never needing to be released or healed. And it enriches our capacity, wisdoms of study, contemplation, and insight. And the orange nectar continues to flow through us as we begin to hear the sound of the mantra. Like we can chant together, if you like. Om Arapatsanadi, 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 Om Arapatsanadi. And we can continue the mantra silently for a short time, continuing to imagine receiving the wisdom energy of Manjushri, clearing the way, bringing clear wisdom, profound wisdom. Om Arapatsanadi, Om Arapatsanadi. Om Arapatanadi. And you can rest quietly for a moment in the space of awareness, and whatever felt quality remains from the mantra. And Manjushri then comes to rest above the crown of your head, facing the same direction as you. Melting into light, Manjushri flows down into you, blessing your body, speech, and mind. You can feel a sense of oneness with Manjushri, and that Manjushri's mind and our mind have the same nature and emptiness. Dedicate whatever positive, some energy we may have developed together through this practice and our discussion today, our contemplations. May they enable us to awaken to our full Buddha potential, to be of lasting value to all living beings without exception, to help enable them to awaken their full potential. May the Supreme Bodhicitta that is not yet grown begin to grow, and that which has begun to grow increase unceasingly for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.